Mostly it's argumentative writing. I also am interested in digital rhetoric, first year composition assignments and activities, and research activities and assignments. Just to let you know, this meeting is being recorded. Um, and this is just a quick agenda of what we're going to do today or what we're going to discuss. I'm going to walk you through, there's going to be a poll, and there's going to be a short video, which I'm going to have you, we're going to discuss. There's going to be a breakout room session. And I'm going to tell you about my own activities, my own assignments, and what I do in order to encourage students um, to reflect on social media. So you will see that. And this is a disclaimer. This is not a strong longitudinal study. Um, I should say that this was a late start class. I welcome questions that any participants may have about this presentation. I have to acknowledge my limitations. I recognize that there are other, there is a broad array of faculty who are attending this session. So those of you in psychology, those of you who may be teaching developmental writing, those of you who may be teaching technical writing, those of you who may be in library science, and we have some administrators here. You may have inputs. I welcome questions. If I can answer, I would defer them. I would take note of them. But specifically, my goal is to explore, discuss activities that we can explore, that we can institute in our classrooms with respect to social media and digital rhetoric. So there is going to be a Zoom poll, and I'm going to walk you through what you can expect. If you look at your screen, at the bottom of your screen, somewhere in the center, there's going to be a polling icon. I have Jeff with me, who is going to launch the poll. You will have 3 minutes to complete the poll. I'm not the only one going to be talking, and that's the reason why I came up with this poll. I want to hear your voice, and I'm going to discuss how maybe maybe who knows, maybe what you say in the poll is going to be reflective of the research I've done, is going to affirm it or even deny it. I'm open to surprises. Jeff, could you please launch the poll? So you should see that on your screen. You have 3 minutes. There are 5 questions.
How long do you want me to leave it each one on, Isaac?
Well, let's leave it. If most people finish under 2 minutes, we can just
okay.
Close it.
Just let me know when you want the next question then.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Next question. Next question.
Hey, just to let you know, Hannah, we can all see your screen on the little Zoom window for some reason.
Donovan, could you repeat that?
Oh yeah, I was just letting Hannah know that we can see her screen in the little Zoom.
Okay, no problem. So it looks like we have. Okay, you can launch the third question now, Jeff. Okay. Okay, let's launch the fourth question. I think there's one more. Next, please. Okay, let's, I'm interested in this, but before we discuss the results, actually, let's share the results now, Jeff, if you don't mind. The results. Okay, looks like for the first question, some of us have concerns. I'm glad to see this. The next question, the next response on teaching and incorporating. Can we view the next, okay, my impressions. Most of us are positive about social media and writing, and that's good to know. Next. Okay, so most of us have a positive view on tech devices and writing in the classroom. That's good to know. Next. Okay, most of us are realistic and optimistic. That's good to know. I think there's next. Okay, this is interesting. From I can do it, but I have concerns, and I can do it all, and I don't have any concerns. I'm very interested in those who don't have any concerns, because I have to admit that I have questions myself. But I'm glad that we all have concerns, and I think we should, as I would point out during. So thank you, and I'm glad that we all are able to discuss. I'm going to. I want to say that when it comes to social media and recent events, we may have questions. We may have ideas. How did we can incorporate all of these in a classroom? And I thought this was interesting. Just when I was researching this, I found out that many Americans are very distrustful of social media, have a negative view of social media. That's the word I should use. Social media is very polarized. Its impact on students in first year writing, I think it's something we can explore. Students are getting news from Twitter. I've seen from my perspective I'm teaching from Harper and also Oakton. And is that a primary news website? Should they be depending on this for source information? First, that would not analyze or go into details or put issues in specific context. It's just sharing and retweets. Students are getting news from Twitter. And looking at these pictures here, we all have interpretations of what this means. It's also interesting that when it comes to younger generation or Gen Zs or Gen Zers, it seems the younger they are, the more positive it seems they are when it comes to social media and its impact on the country. And the older they are, the more negative. Those on the right seem to be more negative about social media, its impact in the country. And looking at some of these pictures, I'm sure we all have our own interpretations of events. And students as well will have their own interpretations of events if we assign an assignment based on what's going on now in today's terms. So this Pew Research poll shows it's 65% of adults do not think that the impact on social media is not, it's mostly responsible for the way things are going haywire in the country right now. Like I said, there are no students' names on this in this presentation. Most of it's going to be based on my summary, paraphrase. I make some conjectures as well based on observation and based on what I also find in research. In first year composition, particularly 101, in EGR 101, some of the objectives that I focus on mostly develop writing to respond to the needs of different audiences and rhetorical situation, and report information from sources accurately and appropriately from their own rhetorical purposes, and summarize, paraphrase, and quote source information objectively and integrate them into their own writing. In my class, I would emphasize argumentative writing. This is my interest. So this comes up a lot in my class. I have students debate and discussion forums, and I saw interesting responses. So in my class, I focus around the theme of digital academic rhetorical writing, which I call DAR. But for this presentation, I'm going to focus on the digital rhetoric unit, not the academic rhetorical writing. If you have questions, I can answer. But for the purpose of this presentation, it's going to be on digital, the digital unit. Now, there's this video that I think, I don't know if we've all seen this, but I would call it an appetizer for what is to come. Let's watch this for 5 minutes, and we'll discuss.
You're dealing with an addicted generation. This is a big time bomb ticking.
This is no accident. Indeed, it is by design.
I mean, seriously?
It was my mistake.
I mean, I think we can all feel it.
To try to make these products as addictive
400%
as possible.
spike in dopamine.
You know, we now know that many of the major social media companies hire individuals called attention engineers who borrow principles from Las Vegas casino gambling, among other places, to try to make these products as addictive as possible. That is the desired use case of these products, is that you use it in an addictive fashion because that maximizes the profit that can be extracted from your attention and data.
It literally is a point now where I think we have created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works. That is truly where we are.
The way the technologist Jaron Lanier puts it is that these companies offer you shiny treats in exchange for minutes of your attention and bytes of your personal data, which can then be packaged up and sold.
What happened is that the attention economy and this race for attention got more and more competitive. And the more competitive it got to get people's attention on, say, a news website, the more they need to add these design principles, these more manipulative design tactics, as ways of holding on to your attention.
You don't realize it, but you are being programmed.
Social media tools are designed to be addictive. The actual desired use case of these tools is that you fragment your attention as much as possible throughout your waking hours. That's how these tools are designed to use. Well, we have a growing amount of research which tells us that if you spend large portions of your day in a state of fragmented attention, so large portions of your day where you're constantly breaking up your attention, take a quick glance, do a just check, and just quickly look at Instagram, that this can permanently reduce your capacity for concentration. I am especially worried about this when we look at the younger generation coming up, which is the most saturated in this technology.
It's very addictive because if you pull on the slot machine arm enough, you will win. And you never know which pull will reward you.
That's an addictive behavior, and it's dopamine that is driving that addiction. So what happens with social media is Robert Sapolsky, who did the foundational research on this at Stanford, calls it the magic of maybe. When you look at your phone and maybe there's a text there and maybe there's not, and you don't know, when it shows up, that high you get, that's dopamine. It's the magic of maybe. Maybe it'll be there, maybe it won't. When it shows up, you get a 400% spike in dopamine. That is roughly the same amount of dopamine as you're getting from cocaine, slightly less than an extremely addictive drug like cocaine. And that's what's happening.
We really care what other people think of us. So for example, you know, when you upload a new photo, a new profile photo of yourself on Facebook, that's a moment where our mind is very vulnerable to knowing what other people think of my new profile photo. And so when we get new likes on our profile photo, Facebook, knowing this, could actually message me and say, oh, you have new likes on your profile photo. And it knows that we'll be vulnerable to that moment because we all really care about when we're tagged in a photo or when we have a new profile photo. And the thing is that they control the dial, the technology companies control the dial for when and how long your profile photo shows up on other people's news feeds. So they can orchestrate it so that other people more often end up liking your profile photo over a delayed period of time, for example, so that you end up having to more frequently come back and see what the new likes are.
And it's literally rewiring our brain. Even social media, the challenge is, with these terms like Facebook depression and everything, because it's that. This is social media depression because whereas everyone's looking at their feed and they're comparing their lives to other people, their highlights of other people's lives.
Wow.
And there's actually less life satisfaction, more sadness, depression, and stuff like that.
And it's interesting because if you think about things that, routinely produce a lot of dopamine, alcohol, for example, there's a drinking age, right? We have a drinking age. The alcohol releases a whole lot of dopamine. It makes you feel really, really good. We say, okay, you can have that, but you've got to wait. You've got to be 21 years old. We don't do that with social media. We're, essentially putting highly addictive drugs into the hands of kids before they have any natural defenses against them. And what you're seeing with internet addiction, with social media addiction, the same thing over and over. It's people trying to change their state of consciousness with a device, trying to get at the.
We're going to stop it right here and move on. I am going to focus on the breakout room, which is the next activity. And before I go into the breakout room, I'm going to review the questions. So there's going to be one group. I'm going to call it the Bears. And there's going to be your responsibility basically is to describe some teaching and discussion activities that you've encouraged in your class in relation to social media or digital rhetoric. The next one is, I call it the group 2, the Cubs and White Sox. If you're a Southsider, I think Donovan, you're a Southsider. So this is something that, you can talk about writing activities and assignments. Now, I would say the breakout room, it's going to be random. I recognize that we have a diversity of staff here who are interested in different topics in relation to social media and writing, or maybe you teach, maybe you're not a composition instructor, but maybe you're a librarian, or maybe you're interested in research. So everyone should feel free to talk about what their own ideas. And those of you who feel like you have a lot of knowledge and understanding, please share your ideas with us. So there's going to be a breakout session, and it's going to be for 5 minutes. But before we go into the breakout session, I just want to review some protocols. So you are to wait until you are randomly placed in a group. You do not have to do anything, just wait. Nominate someone in your group who's going to take notes, who's going to brainstorm ideas for activities, maybe even assignments. And then all of you can do this together. You will have 5 minutes to complete this group activity. So with that said, I would, Jeff, if you don't mind, could you start the breakout room? It's going to be for 5 minutes. I will go over the questions again if you need me to. So for group 1, you could be in any of these groups. You could be teaching and discussion activities, which I've highlighted. The group 2 focuses on writing activities or assignments. You could just write those two, the phrases that I put in bold text, write them down, or if you have a note by your side. Okay, so it looks like this is about to, so you should get a message. And then 3, benefits in encouraging reflective questions. We will have 5 minutes to do this, okay? So we'll reconvene again. So please join the breakout room. It's going to be for 5 minutes and we'll discuss. Thank you, Jeff. Can we have this going?
Yeah, it's going right now.
Okay.
Yep. So Isaac, in 4 minutes, I'll just broadcast. What I'll do is I'll close the room, and that gives people 1 minute to get out.
Yes, that's good.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So how many people do we have in attendance?
Let's see. Well, now that everyone's gone in, let's see. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it looks like we have 10 people and you and me.
Okay, that's not bad. So I'm assuming like with three. Maybe you may have 2 people in.
Right, we got 1 person. Hannah, if you can hear us, you need to respond and go to your breakout room.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know if she's there or not, so.
It doesn't matter. If she doesn't feel like joining, she can just stay, but that's okay.
Okay.
How much time do we have left, Jeff?
2 minutes. I'll close them. It's 1:54, so 1:57 we should be coming back.
No problem.
Taking a tour of the room, huh?
I'm doing so because I don't want the lights switching off on me.
Oh, I got you.
I did that a couple of times already, so.
It's a pain. Happens to us when we're doing work in the room and running cable or something, and we're in one spot, and then all of a sudden the lights go off, and we're in the dark.
I think so when it's almost time, it should be coming back soon now.
It's 55, so in another minute, it'll be 2 minutes total.
No problem.
We'll be back in about 50 seconds.
No problem. We just do one more walk around. Are they back now?
Yes.
We were just getting started.
Oh, thank you, Dan. So we let's go with group 1. The Bears, what say you? Ideas, teaching, discussion activities?
We barely got started. I thought Martinique, your kind of metaphor about abstinence only was a really interesting one. Do you want to share that?
Sure, it doesn't matter. We are all here to learn. I'm here to learn.
Sure. Yeah, I was just saying, if we tell students not to use social media, we're kind of, it's like the abstinence movement where we say just don't do it instead of talking about how to do it safely.
Well,
And
I think it's totally useless to ask anyone not to use social media.
Yeah.
That's just a dead end, you know.
Okay, that's a good point. And I want to comment on that because in my research, 88% of Gen Zs, 18 years old, children born from 1996 upwards, 88% of them are on social media. So how can we say that we're not going to stop them? We're going to talk about the future and some of the aspects of what's going to happen. I did some research based on observation as well. So I totally concur with that. Activities that sort of try to discourage students is sometimes I see that in some prompts because I'm a tutor at the Oakton at the Learning Center. Sometimes I get essays that says, you know, more like kind of like social media is bad for you. I'm not sure of the instruction, but students try to argue that position. And I don't know, you know, can we really make that case that it's bad? Can we also make the opposite case? So interesting points and interesting commentary about not trying to discourage students. Maybe we can have activities that expose them to social media. Number two, we have the Cubs and the Chicago White Sox. What did you guys discuss in your group?
Sure. Our prompt was to kind of think of some potential writing assignments, and it was interesting because we had a group that was composed of two faculty members, me and Mike. Mike teaches in ESL, and he said that he's had some interaction with his class members over social media, and he wants to start a social media page for his ESL courses, but he has his own ideas about how it should be done, and that's when we got cut off. But the prior discussion, Kelsey is the social media person in college relations, right? Is that right? Yes. Okay. And Sylvia is also the social media relations person for the library. And so we were kind of thinking about how the students engage with social media and how they might write, because the people who are, let's say, above traditional college age in the room might not have the same type of writing interaction with social media that our target audience does. So learning how our students write with social media can help both Kelsey and Sylvia with their jobs at Oakton. And that kind of gave me an idea actually for a writing assignment that I just heard rattling around in my head, because I don't use social media, right? I'm kind of a fuddy-duddy in that way and a little bit beyond my years. So I don't really use these assignments too much in my class. So I was thinking, well, maybe one of your assignments could be to write a social media post promoting something at the college, or to write a social media post promoting a library service. And then those things could be retweeted or reposted by Oakton or the library.
Repost it if it's about a library.
Oh, maybe we could get them to do it for extra credit points, right? Yeah. And then one other one that I would like to share, I heard this at a conference a few years ago when Twitter was actually first coming out. It was an instructor who got his students to do a narrative paper with live tweets from history as the basis. So they would pick a historical event, like the one that he used was the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand, because this was right around the time of the centenary of the First World War. So he had his students look up what happened, and then he had some people be the Gavrilo Princip tweeting like, oh, well, I missed it, I'm gonna go get a sandwich tweet. And then he comes out of the sandwich shop and is like, oh, look, it's the Archduke tweet. And then, you know, so, and then from that, they would use it to construct a narrative from a particular point of view about those events. So they used the series of live tweets from Gavrilo Princip's point of view to then construct a paper with proper transitions and those paragraph structure and those type of things. So it wasn't social media per se, but it was the limitations of a social media format, that limited character count that Twitter had, and I think it was still 160 characters back then. So this got him to like get the students to think about narrative order and what's important at each stage of an event, and then tweet that and use that as a way of like outlining a paper, which I thought was kind of cool. But you
That's really creative.
Yeah, you didn't have to do it by tweeting, right? You could just write 160 characters at a time on a piece of paper, but it got them to think about breaking down a difficult college paper into something they do all the time, tweet. Right?
And a quick commentary from you, Donovan. I really appreciate it. I will just make a quick comment on what you said about narrative order, because I do this. I think it's also training them to write concise summaries. Because now they have to think about what they have to say in this limited space. And Twitter, some people say it's not promoting critical thinking, but what some people use Twitter diligently and also creatively, and they can pass across a message in just 150 characters. Let's go on to the next group, the Bulls. What say you? I believe your was to talk about the reflexive questions. What are some benefits? What's in encouraging reflexive questions in a college environment about social media, digital rhetoric? And thoughts, comments?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
So what did you guys discuss in your group? So you were
barely had any time to discuss anything.
Okay.
We really didn't discuss anything. We said hello. I'm sorry.
No problem. But if you were to say something now, what would it be?
Well, I was trying to express that I want to make a Facebook page, right, for my ESL and literacy students. Okay. But my question to Donovan would be, how did that thread turn out when you had him report on the Archduke Ferdinand, and I assume you got to him assassinating what's his face? So how did it turn out? Did it turn out like an AP item, or did it turn into like a quasi half Facebook, half news item, or what?
Yeah, it was. I didn't actually use this exercise. It was one that I heard about at a conference, and it was at a 4Cs, the Conference on College Composition and Communication. So it was an English 101 professor who was teaching narrative, and the title, it was back in the day when, super long academic titles with a semicolon were popular. So it was something like leveraging live tweets from history for a narrative paper assignment, lessons from the digital generation, or something like that. But he used it as basically an outlining method, right? He would use those tweets as a basis for an outlining method. And then the ultimate goal for that assignment sequence was to have a regular, straightforward narrative paper that was built off of those series of tweets.
So it led to, I don't want to say legitimate writing, it led to actual writing.
Yeah. And then what the other cool part about it is he then used that narrative paper as they would use it as the basis for a preliminary research paper, right? Like 2 or 3 sources or something like that.
Now this answers my question. Now, see, this is my concern, and this is what I was saying before we were brought back. Given that this is associated with a type of addiction, right? And certainly good writing, well, we may debate this, good writing generally is good in spite of addiction or in addition to addiction, right? My reservation is, can I actually use this to get, because when I send a text or I write a Facebook thing, I do it just like I'm writing a letter or something. Not quite, but very close. There are sentences, there's punctuation. you know, I could easily turn it into a larger piece of writing. Okay. But I would say, given the dopamine aspect of Facebook and stuff, the threads often become abusive and argumentative, right?
Okay.
And
So-
hard to direct. And
so
that's my concern.
we can continue this conversation. Mike, I appreciate your feedback. You have great. I like what I'm gonna key in on something you said. How things can spiral out of control, become argumentative, and I think that's important in first year writing, because we teaching students how to write, but we also letting them know that there are different responses that we can see when we say something that somebody may not even agree with us. So I'm going to transition. Thank you all for the comments. Thank you all for the participation in the group project. I am going to talk about my class and what I did, and in preparing for this English 101 class that we focused on digital writing, academic writing, and rhetorical writing. Like I mentioned, I'm going to emphasize the digital aspect of it. So this was something I learned when I was in graduate school. And this was when I was in a TESOL program at DePaul. One of my professors in preparing for a class would say, we come up with a set of assumptions, and when we have a problematization of the assumption on the right. So the way I understand it when I was a student, and the way the professor explained it is that we think of anything that could possibly go wrong in planning for a class and come up with possible solutions and how we're going to address them in the classroom. So I had this on my mind when I was preparing for the class, and I've been thinking about the pandemic, and I thought this was something that I could come up with activities. I could come up with how to address some students' concern, but I also had in mind the core objectives. I wasn't just preparing the class because I wanted to talk to them about social media, but I was thinking of how can they consider the different audiences, the rhetorical situation in viral posts, tweets, video, images. And I was also thinking about incorporating aspects of summary, compare and contrast, and quoting sources using social media. So these were the assumptions that I made. And you look at the one that I have on the right. I had group projects. I had students' comments, students engage in group activities, and they will be able to discuss their thoughts, their impressions, and also tell me what they think about social media. So I want to clarify by just defining a key term. Digital rhetoric is something that quick research on Google, you find multiple definitions. Some people have digital rhetorics. I really can't capture what that means, but I just think digital rhetoric, and this is one key definition I found. It goes back all the way to 2003, but a lot has changed since then. But I think Mary Hawkes captures that this is an ongoing dialogue, ongoing negotiation. You're talking about multiple modalities for making meaning and new communication using new technologies. So I focused on topics such as writing in the digital age and the internet. There are some issues, of course. You have, this is common, Google making us stupid? Students had to write about this. And I also contrasted this with the post that the internet doesn't hurt, the article, the internet doesn't hurt people, people do, the new digital age. This was based on a review of Eric Smith's book. And I think it's a contrast to Nicholas Carr's essay. So we had discussion activities that students would have to share and talk and discuss. The Social Network was a movie that students had to write a compare and contrast essay. Students also talked about what they liked about social media. With a goal in mind, they were going to do some research about social media. I made them do some research, but we'll see. I'm going to discuss more about what happened in the class. And this was specifically for the group project. And I would mention that when it comes to group projects and also topics, this could be very polarizing, but I try to stay off any partisan politics. I make sure that I did some of the research myself, and I make sure that these were articles. I got some of them from the CQ researchers, some of them just doing research on YouTube, debates about social media we have now. We're talking about freedom of expression. That's been in the news lately with Twitter banning Trump. Now we have protests and revolution and mass organizing. Like, is this effective? People are writing and tweeting, and students get to write and discuss, summarize, analyze, and I will go over some of the assignments and activities that I did, that I covered in my class. So this was one interesting one. I thought it was, students provided interesting perspective on this, Generation Like, Douglas Roscoff. The essence of this documentary is that students, particularly young generation, Gen Zers, they are using, going on social media because they want to be liked, for self-validation reasons, or to market themselves. To market themselves. And so the question is this perspective true? Is this perspective just, does this represent reality? And many students actually were in agreement with Roscoff. But I always have students who beg to differ. And there was one, I think there were two students who said, one student said, he was being judgmental. How can he go around telling students that, that they love social media, and they are on social media because they just want to be liked? That he should be trying to encourage students how to encourage teenagers that they need to see that what they're doing is wrong, that there's something more to that. Another perspective I got was that students actually say, no, they're not actually going on social media to be liked, but this is just more of a cultural thing. And it was a strong argument the student made. So, because if you're not on social media and you're a teenager today, you're not seen as cool. And so this student had a unique perspective, and one of the students, it was just one or two students who had this unique perspective that begged to differ from the rest. Everybody would say, yes, they're going on social media because they want to be liked. So I thought that was interesting. So we had activities that I would make them, and this was what I was talking about, if they agreed with him or not, just share their perspective. And students mostly agreed, but there were few students who disagreed. And I thought those who disagreed made valid points that this is a cultural thing. They're not just going on social media because they want to be liked. And also, there are other reasons why people go on social media, not just to be liked, especially teenagers. This is also interesting in the social network. I had students, there was a discussion activity on the themes of the social network. The case is, the reality is that most of the themes that we see happening today predates, it's on the social network reviews, issues such as harassment, issues such as bullying, issues such as competition. This movie touched base on a lot of the themes that we're seeing in the conflicts over social media, regulating social media. It's predicted there. And so students had to write about this. There was a discussion activity in which they would share their views, talk about potential themes and connect them. And students had various responses. I'm going to discuss their responses, which I've summarized. And I had a major assignment, which is a compare and contrast. I thought the theme of betrayal and competition was interesting because were interesting themes, because in the movie, you do see a lot of that. If you look at the tagline, it says you don't get to 500 million friends without making a few enemies. And the movie argues that that's what Zuckerberg did in order to be successful. Should I mention again that he controls like 3 social media platforms? And this was back into, so a lot has changed since then. But so this was the compare and contrast essay I gave them, the prompt. Of course, there are other specifics, but I'm just sharing this with you. And the assignment specification, I had them use quotations, I had them use their notes, I had them use summary, I had them even use personal experience to talk about what they see on social media. People betraying or competing with each other for likes, for tweets, for shares, for affirmation. So students reviewed a lot about that, but I didn't cover in this presentation. I do not cover everything that they say. I just touched on a few activities that I think reviews a lot that we can learn about social media. So this is a continuation of the I'm going to go over this because when I ask students specific questions, they will give you responses that were particular to their situation, unique to their situation and their preferences. But when I asked general questions, it was more, some of them going to give responses that were lengthy, commentary on politics, culture, entertainment, news, marketing. It was a varied response. And here's an example. I've summarized this for clarity and conciseness, but I will focus on the key words: trust, opportunities, fake news, something that's partisan news. You can have individual narratives on social media, but it's a negative space, one student said. One student think it's just simplifying, dumbing down writing, to use their words, or to use the students' words. This is a problem with millennials, Gen Zers. We have grammatical error. Another student, well, it's a multimodal space. It's new media, self-expression. Some say that it's, when it comes to social media and today, it promotes uncritical reflection. What's trendy and what is popular. Some say popularity, humor. It's a place for gossip. So it seems like our students are, when I was analyzing this, most of the results, it's mostly negative. Uncritical reflection, false information spreaders, poster, toxic ideologies, judgmentalism, social media user individual responsibility. But there were a few responses that were somewhat positive that says, yeah, the individual is responsible for whatever he or she posts. And then again, we see voice, disinformation, speed, journalists who are buyers, who spread lies. Some say it's a matter of love-hate relationship. The feedback you get in that space, it's a matter of, could be positive, it could be negative. Some say it encourages fear. The outcome to could be negative on the individual who's posting or sharing their thoughts in that space. Another perspective was that you have to be cautious when when you're on social media. So students understand what's going on. Again, similar to what we've opinions. Some say it promotes non-academic. The writing there is non-academic. Some say, again, it promotes self-expression, access, ease. You're able to express your voice to many individuals. Some say that this brings another dimension to text. When you capture moments with pictures, you can add words to all provide clarity, context to the pictures or to the images that we have on social media space. So this, when it comes to what they're doing, guess what? Instagram and Snapchat, most of our students, at least from my experience from teaching in Harper and also Oakton, it seems like Snapchat and Instagram, very popular among them. Snapchat is the most common. I think for this one class, it seems it was more of Snapchat and Instagram. The next was Twitter. Now, I'll mention is that it's easier to tell what students are doing because of what we know about social media platforms, the way they're designed, the interfaces available on many of these platforms, the purpose, the contents, what you're able to features. So we're able to I can make some inferences of what they're doing easily. And sometimes they were open to tell me what they were doing in the discussion. And but one thing I thought was interesting was that students, I had a group project, not a doctor, but at Harper, and a student complained to me that another student would not add her on our Instagram page. Sorry, on his Snap as a friend on Snapchat. This student wanted to do group work using Snapchat, and that was like something new to me because I said they can just exchange each other's contact. I was thinking they would just be phone numbers and they'd be texting each other, but no, they wanted to do it over Snapchat, and that's how they did the group project. So Snapchat and Instagram, common very common in first year writing class. These students are using them of course, they're communicating with, and so we can see from the keywords, the trends are all similar. And I'm going to be repeating myself, which is why I'm just focusing on the keywords. So communication is popular with family, friends, and co-workers, accessing contents. This is what students loved about it. Again, family, friends. Oh, with Pinterest, you have self-help, access to ideas and other contents. Instagram as well. Some students, like they mentioned, they're reading content, reading news, going on Twitter for inspiration. Some say it's a pastime activity for them. When it comes to what they're doing, some use LinkedIn for networking, for just looking at the latest news and the latest development in the job markets. And YouTube too, it's educational for inspiration. And this, it's what they're doing. You see the trends are just very, very, very similar. Access to reading contents. They love reading on social media. They love reading news and accessing different contents. Instagram as well is popular. It makes them pictures, just able to reach out to family members to see how they're growing over time. The stories that have been shared. This is something the students mentioned that they're able to. In fact, one student said that this was the way that she was able to reach out to her friends. They won't respond to a phone call or a text message. It was Snapchat they would respond to, and that was quickly and easy for her to get feedback. And it continues to go. TikTok, it's something that is rising among the students. I've seen students have spoken about this with fascination and interest, if not amazement. So it's similar to Snapchat, but according to one student, I'm not a Snapchat user, nor do I use TikTok. With TikTok, you can go beyond your circle of friends to gain access to new people. So one student said, because of this, I love TikTok because it lets me go beyond my circle of friends and to access new users or other users of content. Some of these are repeated ideas. Okay, so when it comes to talking about where students are going, there was one, Daniel Burrs, he argues that we can always make predictions based on linear changes, predictions that are very, very certain. But given what I know from history and also as a philosophy major, it's very hard to come up with certainty, to predict something with certainty. I mean, there's always going to be an outlier, but I would agree with him that we can make predictions based on linear changes are possible. We know that Gen Zers write more than any other generation, and they're not going to stop writing. At least as of 2021, many teenagers are on social media, and they're not going to stop using this platform less. They're just going to continue to use it. We can say that confidently, at least for 2021. Anything can happen, of course. I guarantee that. And we also know that they will continue to share content effortlessly, not just Gen Zers, but also millennials and people on social media tend to do this a lot, sharing contents. But this raises problems. And those of us interested in research, deepfake is becoming popular. It's going to be present its own set of problems. So we already have a problem with fake news articles, but now we have deepfake videos that create problems when people have when people upload videos that they've just been manipulated. So I make the following conjectures based on observation research, and I also make some inferences. I think for first year writing, we have to, and from other research we've done, consider the interest of students. It's important because some students, and you will come up, are not very motivated. They feel like we're just pouring down what we are interested in on them. So maybe transitioning from what they're interested in to having them research this and writing about it, that could be something we learn from their experience or interest in social media. Also, I think this is something that piques my curiosity. Students communicate very, very differently, especially Gen Zers. So I gave the example of students who want to who want to coordinate group project using Snapchat. That's something I've never heard before, but I let them do it. So maybe make changes to the way we have communication on group projects, be flexible with them. That could help them better in planning and executing a group project, and even writing about these group projects that we give them. It's obvious that they're going to continue to leave more digital footprints, and they're going to continue to explore more social media platforms. Of course, any of this is possible, it could change. I'm willing to be corrected on this if anyone has found other research that disputes any of these points that I'm making. When it comes to the way they're expressing themselves, I think we can have rhetorical analysis projects, maybe a rhetorical analysis of Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram, etc., and have them, look at the picture and then talk about, conduct a rhetorical analysis on that picture, maybe something from Instagram or Twitter. And then the problem too is attention span. Some of the assignments I'm getting, in my class, when I tutor, it's mostly about students complaining about how their attention span is shrinking. And from research, yes, it's a problem in the 21st century. Attention spans are shorter in the 21st century. We're bombarded with information. And this is not just something that Gen Zers are struggling with, but also many people in the 21st century are struggling with. So notification was something students complain about. It said, oh, this is a problem, the fear of missing out. And because of our time, I would say we can draw the implications. Jen Twenge has written a lot about. She calls Gen Z's iGens, but most scholars call them Generation Z, but she uses iGen to refer to Gen Zs. And she mentioned this. It's interesting, it's an interesting point. But are there implications for teaching and first year writing? Yes, I think so. When we talk about strategies, there are strategies for encouraging discussions in classroom, but these are not perfect strategies. They're not perfect solutions. We can encourage or use many short videos, but that doesn't mean that it's going to solve the problem with students not being motivated. I've had students who they've just been forced to enter into a composition class by their parents. There are many questions, but from doing research, this Ashley Evans, she wrote this was a dissertation. This was a dissertation paper, and a good point she makes was that social media encourages dialogic engagement, and this is something that she says that we need to do more in first year writing. That first year composition theory does not really encourage this. And Donovan, back to what you said, with the narrative that became the threads that were created on the social media platform that had became a narrative, were used to write a narrative paper. I think this probably highlights Ashley Evans' point. So feedback on social media and the likes and comments, emojis, how do we transition the way students perceive feedback? And how can this help them become better writers in first year writing? This was something she talked about. I think this is interesting because I've had students who tell me that that in writing a paper, they feel like they're not supposed to get any negative comments. By negative comments, they mean constructive criticisms. So some students do not take any form of criticism well. So I do not know if this has something to do with social media, somebody making a negative comments that may not be critical. So I think this would be worth exploring, how students are perceiving feedback in the 21st century in a social media age, where people just want to say everything that is nice and everything is fantastic and use flattery to encourage people. So this would be interesting, worth exploring in first year writing. Feedback on social media, how does that impact first year writing or maybe first year writing instructors?
Yeah, I think that might have something to do with the thumbs up, thumbs down, right? But that's your response on social media. You can do a quick thumbs up and a quick thumbs down, but there's no thumb to the side saying good idea, but your organization needs work.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. So it's been asked again. So what is there are conflicts when it comes to teaching composition and teaching social media. According to this research, it's more about what we consider valuable learning or worthwhile training. But the researchers say that it's best to focus on teacher training, that it's focused on inquiry-based learning, teachers exploring opportunities to use a variety of innovative technologies, and also a broad array of technological tools. The goal is to help teachers harness new technologies into their teaching to the benefit of higher education students and the institution at large. And this, I have this is my final statement. In the age of polarized time, such as we are in, what can we do to acknowledge, or even to make our college and even our students, or even the country at large, less divided? Just looking at this picture alone, people would have different reaction when they see Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. Somebody might say this is proof that anarchy is something supported by the left. Somebody will say, oh no, this is about cops who commit police brutality. So our students do come with different points and positions and interpretations. When you see a viral image, just as I showed in the beginning, they're going to come up with diverse perspectives. And I've seen that some students have said that they're afraid of sharing their points or position. So I think we can always talk about how we can encourage students to engage in summary of diverse perspectives, viewpoints, even analysis of viral images. That's something that we have to consider, because it's going to be polarized. Students might be divided along ideological lines. What they see is trending, what has been retweeted or commented on. This picture was on Cop Free Zone was something that those on the right were retweeting amongst themselves and criticizing, and those on the left. So in polarized times, when we go on social media, information that we even share with them could be very divisive. So I think we can be mindful of the assignments we give them and what we ask them to do, but ensure that they also understand various perspectives, and that helps them make even stronger arguments. And that's the end of it. I have my sources. I'm happy to collaborate with anyone, because there are questions that I can't even answer myself. Any questions so far? Time is up, but unless we want to say anything, have any unique contribution?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I think that was really good. Give me a lot of things to think about in terms of how our students are engaging with social media, especially when I think about this stuff, I tend to lean more towards the end of your presentation, and especially with what has happened recently, and because I am not an active participant in social media, I'm really hesitant to open up that can of worms in my classroom.
Yes.
We, by our nature as an academic institution, we have to teach students how to think.
Yes.
And I'm afraid that if somebody starts to use, say, some Pizzagate or George Soros is funding Black Lives Matter conspiracy theories in my class as evidence in their papers, and I contest this type of thinking with perfectly logical reasons, right? Why this type of thinking is dangerous, that I'm, number one, going to get pushback and have the student retreat into, further retreat into these silos. And number two, I'm kind of concerned that type of thinking, if aired in a forum, like even a limited forum, like a D2L shell or something like this, or even an in-person classroom, that the infection could spread, to use a metaphor that is warranted by the times as well, right? So I recognize the need for us to embrace these types of communication, because they're not going away, like you said, and I'm just afraid of the political implications in such a polarized time.
Donovan, I absolutely agree with you, and it was something I thought about in my class. Like when you have section 230, that's being debated right now, how it offers legal protections to social media platforms and companies. So for the big topics, I reserve them for group projects. I don't have students write, so they see both sides. I expose them to both sides of the political out, and how people can even think differently on freedom of expression. or even when it comes to protests and revolution, how people can think differently about that. So these are usually something I reserve for group, and I have them respond to it as a group. So they come up with diverse responses. So from my experience, I think when I avoid those very complicated discussions by just making them see what people are saying on both sides. And I think those research people have found good resources on CQ Researcher. We would have people expert debating on both sides. So they just make it very complicated. So one person is arguing one point and I would say, no, actually it can be seen as this way. So yeah, it's definitely something I've seen, and it's something like I'm welcome to, even how one can reduce that. We stop our class from becoming, a political zone where students are just divided politically and arguing different positions. But I think they can do well in summarizing these positions. It helps them understand better, and maybe even challenge their thoughts and ideas about these positions, about what's going on in the country. And that's it. I don't have more to say.
Oh, wait, Dan had a question in the chat.
Oh, I'm not even looking at the chart. So, oh, wow. I'm sorry, guys. I've not been looking at the chart. So
It's okay.
So it's been a long. I remember a few years ago, more person complaining. Okay, so the different. Let me share my screen and see what I'm.
I just remember, some guy complaining, these damn kids today, they don't talk on the phone. All they do is, this. And, they're always emailing, they don't talk to each other anymore. And what I objected to is this idea that, what are you talking about? Kids are actually writing letters, the old art of writing a friend a letter. That's all an email is. And that, the texting is that they're doing more reading and writing, I think, than if they just picked up the phone and started talking to each other. So I'm not sure if that's a silver lining or just an observation that we talk about writing in genre. College writing needs to be that directed, objective analysis of source material.
Mm-hmm.
And the social platforms then are source material. I also feel uncomfortable getting involved in discussions about things that could erupt into pure chaos. So I would, if I chose to, or if a student chose to write about social media, I would have to make some really kind of stringent guidelines about how it's to be discussed.
Yes.
That was just the point I was making there.
Yes. So I had one activity I had students complete was, because I'm not going to catch up with them when it comes to social media. And so I had them like, okay, you do research tell me about one social media platform when it comes to privacy. How can you protect yourself? They're going to just tell me, how could you stay safe? What can you do? How could you use this to the benefits of looking up for job opportunities like LinkedIn? And so they get to tell other students who are interested in different platforms. So I make them do research about it, and I don't tell them what they need to think about it, or if they need to use one platform or not use another. Because I'm not a social media person. I use Facebook, and that's pretty much it. But they have multiple platforms, so I stay out of that conflict, and I just have them do research. But that's a good point, Stan, and I do appreciate all the comments. We out of time, but I want my MTV. Okay.
We were just making fun of kids these days.
Yeah, these darn kids today. Thank you very much. I thought this was awesome.
Appreciate it.
Because I'm
Everyone,
like Donovan,
you,
I don't participate in that stuff.
Thank you,
I
Hunter.
don't know a lot about it. So
thank you, Ruth Whitney. Thank you, Dan Rod. Thank you, Martinek. Thank you, Sylvia. Am I missing anyone? Oh, Jeff, thank you very much for helping me with the breakout rooms.
You're welcome, Isaac. It's good to meet you.
Thank you, Mike Crystal. I appreciate you guys being here. All right, bye-bye, everyone.
Everybody, bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.